What if I told you that right now, sitting in your kitchen cabinet, there are 3 ordinary spices that can drop your blood sugar by up to 29% in just 7 days? Not a new medication, not an expensive supplement, not something your doctor needs to prescribe. Just 3 spices that most people already own, and almost nobody is using them correctly. I'm going to show you exactly what they are, how they work inside your body, and the precise way to use them, because the way most people use these spices does almost nothing. But used correctly, the results are remarkable. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share has already changed thousands of lives, and your doctor may have never mentioned any of it. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's 67 years old. She came to me 2 years ago with a fasting blood sugar of 187. Her A1C was 8.4. She was already on Metformin, and her doctor was talking about adding insulin. Margaret was terrified. She'd watched her mother lose a foot to diabetes complications. She was not going to let that happen to her. She didn't want more medication. She wanted to understand what was actually happening inside her body, and what she could do about it naturally, without side effects. So we talked, and I told her about these 3 spices. I showed her exactly how to use them. I told her what the research actually says. 3 months later, not 7 days, 3 months of consistent use, her fasting blood sugar was 112. Her A1C dropped to 6.1. Her doctor called it, and I quote, unexplainable. It wasn't unexplainable. It was science. And today, I'm going to explain it to you. Before we talk about the spices, you need to understand one thing, because without this, none of what I'm about to say will make sense. When you eat, especially carbohydrates, your body breaks that food down into glucose. Sugar. That sugar enters your bloodstream. Your blood sugar rises. Now your pancreas sees this rise and releases insulin. Think of insulin as a key. It unlocks your cells so that glucose can enter the cell and be used as energy. In a healthy person, this works perfectly. Blood sugar rises, insulin is released, cells open up, sugar enters, blood sugar comes back down. But in someone with type 2 diabetes, or pre-diabetes, the lock is broken. The cells don't respond to insulin properly. This is called insulin resistance. The key doesn't work anymore, so glucose stays in the bloodstream, blood sugar stays high, and over time, this damages your blood vessels, your nerves, your kidneys, your eyes. Now here is where it gets interesting. Because these 3 spices, each one, through a completely different mechanism, help fix that broken lock. They improve insulin sensitivity. They help your cells respond to insulin again. Let me show you how. Spice number 1. And if you only remember one thing from this entire video, remember this: cinnamon. Now I know what you're thinking. Cinnamon? Really? That's what I put on my oatmeal. Yes, that's cinnamon. But here's what most people don't know, and this is critical. There are 2 types of cinnamon, and one of them is almost useless for blood sugar. One of them is extraordinary. The cinnamon you find in most grocery stores, the common kind, Ceylon's cheaper cousin called cassia cinnamon, contains a compound called coumarin. In large amounts, coumarin can actually stress your liver, and it has significantly weaker blood sugar effects. The one you want is Ceylon cinnamon, true cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon or Sri Lanka cinnamon. It looks lighter in color, it's slightly more expensive, and it is a completely different story for your blood sugar. Here is what the research shows. A landmark study published in the journal Diabetes Care, one of the most respected diabetes research publications in the world, followed 60 people with type 2 diabetes over 40 days. They were given Ceylon cinnamon, just 1 gram per day, less than half a teaspoon. After 40 days, fasting blood sugar dropped between 18 and 29%. Not after months, after 40 days. But how? What is actually happening inside your body? Ceylon cinnamon contains a compound called cinnamaldehyde. This compound does something remarkable. It mimics insulin. It activates the same receptors on your cells that insulin activates. It essentially acts like a spare key, helping glucose enter your cells even when insulin resistance is high. It also slows gastric emptying. This means food moves more slowly from your stomach into your intestines, which means glucose enters your bloodstream more slowly, which means smaller blood sugar spikes after meals. And it reduces something called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. These are toxic compounds formed when sugar binds to proteins in your blood. AGEs are responsible for many of the worst complications of diabetes: nerve damage, kidney damage, vision problems. Cinnamon actively reduces their formation. Now, Here is exactly how to use it, because this matters. Do not just sprinkle cinnamon on your food and call it done. The dose needs to be consistent, and the timing matters. 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, every single morning, mixed into warm water, not boiling, warm, and drink it 15 minutes before your first meal. Before breakfast. Why before breakfast? Because your first meal of the day causes the largest blood sugar spike of the entire day. Having cinnamon in your system before that spike blunts it significantly. Some people prefer to mix it into their morning coffee. That works too. Just make sure it dissolves. Cinnamon doesn't dissolve completely, so stir well. Where to find it? Look for Ceylon cinnamon specifically on Amazon or in health food stores. The label must say Ceylon. If it just says cinnamon, that's cassia. Put it back. Spice number 2. And this one surprises people the most, because the research behind it is extraordinary, and yet almost nobody is using it for blood sugar. Turmeric. You've probably heard of turmeric for inflammation. Maybe you've seen it in golden milk or supplements. But what most people don't know is that turmeric's active compound, curcumin, has a direct and powerful effect on insulin resistance. Let me tell you about a study from Thailand. Researchers took 240 people with prediabetes, people whose blood sugar was elevated but hadn't yet crossed into full type 2 diabetes. They gave half of them curcumin supplements. The other half got a placebo. After 9 months, 0% of the curcumin group had progressed to full type 2 diabetes. 0%. In the placebo group, 16% had developed type 2 diabetes. Read that again. In 9 months, curcumin completely prevented the progression from prediabetes to diabetes. This is not a small study. This was published in Diabetes Care. How does it work? Curcumin reduces inflammation at the cellular level, specifically in the cells of your pancreas that produce insulin. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be one of the primary drivers of insulin resistance. Curcumin directly targets the inflammatory pathways, NFKB if you want to look it up, that damage insulin-producing cells. It also activates an enzyme called AMPK. Think of AMPK as your body's master metabolic switch. When AMPK is activated, your cells become dramatically more sensitive to insulin. They open up more easily, glucose enters more efficiently, blood sugar comes down. But here is the single most important thing I will tell you about turmeric. Curcumin, on its own, is almost completely useless. Your body cannot absorb it. It passes through your digestive system without entering your bloodstream in meaningful amounts. This is why so many people say, "I tried turmeric. It didn't do anything." They were taking it wrong. To absorb curcumin, you need one thing, black pepper. Specifically, a compound in black pepper called piperine. Piperine increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. That is not a typo. 2,000%. So here is exactly how to use it. 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Mix together. Add to warm water or warm milk or your evening meal. Every single day. The timing for turmeric is different from cinnamon. Take turmeric with your largest meal of the day, usually lunch or dinner. Because curcumin is fat-soluble, having it with food, especially food that contains some healthy fat, further increases absorption. If you cook with olive oil, coconut oil, or eat avocado, have your turmeric at that meal. The fat helps it absorb even further. One more thing about turmeric. It is a blood thinner at high doses. If you are currently taking blood-thinning medication, warfarin, aspirin therapy, Plavix, please speak with your doctor before adding turmeric. At normal dietary amounts, it's generally safe, but I always want you to be informed. Spice number 3, and I want to be very direct with you about this one. This is not as well known as cinnamon or turmeric. Most people have never heard of it. But in terms of raw blood sugar lowering power, the research on this is the most impressive of anything I've discussed today. Berberine. Berberine is a compound found in several plants, including barberry, golden seal, and Oregon grape. It has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years. But it wasn't until recently that Western researchers started studying it seriously for diabetes. And what they found stunned the medical community. A meta-analysis. That means a study that combines the results of multiple studies, published in the journal Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine, looked at 27 separate clinical trials on berberine and blood sugar. The conclusion was remarkable. Berberine reduced fasting blood sugar by an average of 20%. It reduced A1C by an average of 12%. It reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by 29%. Then researchers did something even more interesting. They compared berberine directly to metformin, the most commonly prescribed diabetes medication in the world, head-to-head, same patients, same duration. The result? Berberine performed equally to metformin for blood sugar control, equally, a plant compound, versus the #1 prescribed diabetes drug on Earth. This was published in Metabolism, one of the world's most prestigious metabolic research journals. How does it work? Berberine activates that same AMPK enzyme I mentioned with turmeric, but much more powerfully. It essentially flips your body's metabolic switch into a more insulin-sensitive state. Your cells begin responding to insulin more effectively, almost immediately. It also reduces glucose production in the liver. One of the problems in type 2 diabetes is that your liver continues producing glucose even when your blood sugar is already high. Berberine signals the liver to stop, to produce less glucose, which directly lowers fasting blood sugar, and it alters your gut microbiome in ways that are still being studied, but appear to independently improve insulin sensitivity through pathways we don't fully understand yet. Now, important information about berberine. First, berberine is powerful. This is not a gentle supplement. It genuinely lowers blood sugar. If you are already on diabetes medication, metformin, insulin, glipizide, anything, you must speak with your doctor before adding berberine, because combining it with medication can cause blood sugar to drop too low. This is called hypoglycemia. It is dangerous. If you are managing blood sugar through diet and lifestyle alone, berberine is generally considered safe. But please, talk to your doctor first. Second, where to find it. Berberine is available as a supplement, capsules, in health food stores and on Amazon. Look for berberine HCl. That's the most bioavailable form. Dose, 500 milligrams, taken with meals, 2 to 3 times per day. With meals, not on an empty stomach. On an empty stomach, it can cause nausea and digestive discomfort. Start with 1 capsule per day for the first week. Let your body adjust. Then increase to 2, then 3 if needed, always with food. Now, here is something important. These 3 spices work through different mechanisms. Cinnamon mimics insulin and slows glucose absorption. Turmeric reduces inflammation and activates AMPK. Berberine activates AMPK powerfully and reduces liver glucose production. Because they work differently, they complement each other. Using all 3 together creates a compounding effect that is greater than any one alone. Here is the simple daily protocol. Morning, before breakfast, half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon in warm water. With lunch or your largest meal, 1 teaspoon of turmeric with 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. With dinner, 500 milligrams of berberine capsule. That is it. 15 seconds of action in the morning, 10 seconds at lunch, 1 capsule at dinner. Do this consistently for 30 days. Then check your fasting blood sugar. I want you to see the numbers yourself. Margaret's story isn't unique. I've seen this happen again and again. People who were told they would be on medication forever, who made simple, consistent changes, and watched their numbers transform. You deserve to know what your options are. You deserve to understand what the science actually says, not just what fits on a prescription pad. If this video helped you, please subscribe, because every single week I bring you research-backed information about managing blood sugar naturally. Information that took me years of studying to find, delivered to you in minutes. And leave a comment below. Tell me, which of these 3 spices are you going to try first? I read every comment, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I'll see you in the next video.